Shalom and welcome, all my brothers and sisters. Isaiah 53 is without a doubt the most controversial passage among missionaries, messianics, Christians, and other cult members who believe that Isaiah 53 is speaking about a dying Savior, the Messiah, according to the Christian scriptures, the Greek scriptures. But I have many videos basically showing that even with Isaiah 53 alone, it does not prove that Yeshua was the suffering servant at all. Even by itself, it doesn't work. I showed throughout Isaiah from chapters 41 through 56 that the Messiah is not the servant, and Israel is absolutely the servant. Now, this presentation is going to be about the objections where Christians, Messianics, and other cult members will say, No. I don't care how many times it says Israel is the servant in Isaiah. I don't care. I want to see it somewhere else. So I'm going to show you that I don't need Isaiah. I can show you other places with Isaiah and other parts of the entire Hebrew Scriptures that makes it very clear that Israel, period, is the suffering servant. And Israel's often referred to as the singular, or in the singular. First, I will use Isaiah 43 verse 10, because it's very important. It says there very clearly, "You are my witnesses," plural, "and my servant," Isaiah 53, singular, plural and singular. Now let's go to other passages outside of Isaiah to show you that Isaiah is not the only place that proves that Israel is the servant and singular. Look at Exodus chapter 4 verse 22. What does it say there? "You shall say unto Pharaoh, Thus says Yehovah, Israel is my son, my firstborn." Hosea chapter 8 verse 3. "Israel has rejected the good, the enemy will pursue him," singular. Hosea chapter 11 verse 1 says, "When Israel was a child, then I loved him, and I called my son out of Egypt." Now God could have said, "I called my children out of Israel." He doesn't. He says, "He called my son." Hosea chapter 14 verses 5 through 6 says, "I will be like the dew to Israel. He will blossom like the lily, and he will take root like the cedars of Lebanon. His shoots will sprout, and his splendor will be like the olive tree, and his fragrance like the cedars of Lebanon." Psalms chapter 130 verse 8, "And he will redeem Israel from all his sins." Jeremiah chapter 48 verse 27, "Now was Israel a laughing stock to you, or was he caught among thieves? For each time you spoke about him, you shook your head in scorn." Again, singular, singular. We don't need just Isaiah. Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 19, "And I shall bring Israel back to his pasture, and he will graze in the Carmel and Bashan, and his desire will be satisfied in the hill country of Ephraim and Gilead." Exodus chapter 19 verse 2, "And they set out from Rephidim, they came into the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness." Notice that's the plural for Israel. "And there he," Israel, "encamped in front of the mountain." We go from plural to singular in the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 1 verses 10 through 12. Pharaoh says regarding the Jewish people, "Come, let us deal wisely with him." Usually it's translated in Christian Bibles as "them," lest he increase. "And if there be a war, he will join our enemies and fight against us and go up from the land." Again, speaking about Israel in the singular. So they appointed taskmasters over him to afflict him with hard labor, and he built for Pharaoh storage cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted him, the more he spread out, so that they were in dread of the sons of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 32 verses 8 through 13 says, "When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, When he separated the sons of man, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the numbers of the sons of Israel. For Yahweh's portion is his people. Jacob is the allotment of his inheritance. He found him in the desert land, and in the howling waste of the wilderness. He encircled him. He cared for him. He guarded him as a pupil of his eye, like an eagle that stirs up his nest, that hovers over its young. He spreads his wings and caught them. So he's going from singular to plural. Them. He carried them on his pinions. Yahweh alone guided him. Here we go back and forth. Him, them, him. And there was no foreign god with him. Israel. Period. He made him ride on the high places of the earth, and he ate the produce of the field. And he made him suck honey from the rock, and oil from the flinty rock. So the response to all this that people will say, understandably, is how could the servant be Israel when the Jewish people will admit that they were wrong for rejecting God's servant by confessing, all we like sheep have gone astray, verse 6 of Isaiah 53. Furthermore, how could Israel say for the transgressions of my people, he was stricken, verse 8. It doesn't make any sense for Israel to reject Israel, for Israel to suffer for Israel, period. That's what they'll say. The response to this is this. The objection stems from a critical error in reading our passage. It jumps to a stereotype conclusion about who is speaking. I always say this. Before you present Isaiah 53 or respond to the claim that Isaiah 53 is speaking about the Messiah or the Mashiach, you must ask the question, who is speaking? If you don't ask who is speaking, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Who is speaking in Isaiah 53? Again, context is everything. Read the end of chapter 52, and it tells you who's speaking. It's the nations and kings, shocked out of their skulls. They are shocked because it's in the Messianic age. It just happened. And all the world is realizing that the Jews were right all along. We had it right all along for rejecting the Christian Messiah and rejecting the prophets. Rejecting those. That's why all the nations, all the religions say the Jews are wrong. They had it right long ago, but now they're wrong, and our religion is a continuation, and they blew it. But in the end of days, the nations of the world will realize that Yehudim, the Jews, had it right all along. Now, where can we look somewhere else to show that this is truth? Not just in Isaiah. Can we find this idea that the nations will be stunned and shocked out of their skulls like, oh my God? Yes. Micah chapter 7, verses 15 through 16 speaks about the end of days. Again, same thing. Just as in the days of your coming out of the land of Egypt, so shall I show unto you, Israel, wonderful things. The nations shall see and be ashamed of all their power and might. They will place their hands on their mouths. Utter shock. Their ears shall be as deaf, it says. Because the Messianic age will show that Israel has been redeemed by Yehovah. And we were right all along. And we have kept this covenant for over 3,000 years, the righteous remnant on earth, keeping the covenant all throughout history. The world will know this and they will come to our light. It doesn't mean people are going to be destroyed. No. Read Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 2. It says, the nations of the world will stream to Israel and say, come, let us go to the mountain of Yehovah, that he may teach us his ways. Zechariah chapter 8 verse 23 says, in those days 10 men of every nation shall grab the hem of a Jew and say, take us with you, for now we know God is with you. Jeremiah chapter 16 verse 19 says, to you all the nations of the world will come from the ends of the earth and say, oh my God, surely our ancestors have inherited nothing but lies and vanity. For how can we make gods into ourselves, and they are not gods? We blew it. We see it over and over in the Hebrew Scriptures. The nations of the world, not the Jews, the nations of the world are going, oh boy, we blew it. The Hebrew Scriptures never says ever that the Jewish people, Israel, Judah, the righteous remnant, would ever have egg on their face and realize that they're wrong. Never says that. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you'll look deeper into this. I have a 3-part series on Isaiah 53. If you go down the list of my videos, 3-part series. If you really want to know and get full, complete scope of Isaiah 53 and why we can be certain that Isaiah 53 is not speaking about the Messiah, but Israel, the righteous remnant who has always been through the suffering servant. You can only be a suffering servant if you survive and suffered throughout history to be that servant in the end of days, keeping the covenant. So please check out the 3-part video presentation I have on Isaiah 53 and subscribe today. Shalom, everyone.